When you think of an energy superpower, you probably picture Saudi Arabia, oil fields, pipelines, tankers, but the most concentrated energy choke point on Earth right now isn't in the Gulf. It's a landlocked stretch of steppe between Russia and China. In 2025, one country dug up about 40% of all the uranium mined on the planet. 40%, more than the next 4 countries combined. Almost every nuclear reactor keeping the lights on. And now every AI data center racing to plug into nuclear power. Depends on the fuel coming out of Kazakhstan. And almost nobody is paying attention. Let's start with the raw number. Because it's almost hard to believe. According to the World Nuclear Association, Kazakhstan produced about 25,839 tons of uranium in 2025. That single figure is roughly 40% of the entire world's mined supply. To put that in perspective, the second biggest producer, Canada, sits somewhere around 15%, Namibia, around 11%, Australia, Russia, Niger, all trailing far behind. Think about that for a second. You could combine the next several producing countries and they still wouldn't match what comes out of this one nation on the Central Asian steppe. No other commodity that the modern world truly cannot live without is this concentrated in one place. Not oil. Saudi Arabia accounts for only around a tenth of global crude. Not even the rare earths everyone worries about. Uranium is more lopsided than any of them. And here's the part that surprises people. This isn't a recent fluke. Kazakhstan has been the world's #1 uranium producer every single year since 2009. When it overtook Canada and Australia and never looked back. For over a decade and a half. The fuel rods inside reactors in France, the United States, China, South Korea and Japan have quietly traced back to the Kazakh steppe. Every time you flip on a light powered by nuclear energy, there's a good chance the atoms splitting to make that electricity were dug up here. The country sits on roughly 14% of the world's known uranium resources, a huge share. But notably less than its 40% of production. In other words, it punches far above even its enormous reserves. Because of how cheaply and easily it can pull that uranium out of the ground. That cost advantage is the whole story. And it's where this gets genuinely strange. When most people imagine a uranium mine, they picture a giant open pit. Or dark tunnels with workers in hazmat suits hauling out glowing rocks. In Kazakhstan, there's almost none of that. Walk onto a Kazakh uranium site and you might just see a flat field dotted with pipes and wellheads. Looking more like a quiet oil patch than a mine. That's because almost all of Kazakhstan's uranium now comes from a method called in situ leaching. Or ISL. Here's how it works. Instead of digging the rock out, engineers drill wells down into the uranium-bearing sandstone. They pump a mild acidic solution underground. That solution dissolves the uranium right where it sits, deep below the surface. Then they pump the uranium-rich liquid back up and extract the metal at a processing plant. No massive pit, no mountain of waste rock, no army of underground miners. This is the secret weapon. In situ leaching is dramatically cheaper than conventional hard rock mining. And Kazakhstan's geology is almost perfectly suited for it, shallow, permeable deposits that the solution moves through easily. The result is some of the lowest cost uranium production anywhere on Earth. When the global price falls and mines in Canada or Africa start losing money and shutting down, Kazakhstan can often keep producing profitably. That low cost is exactly why the country didn't just enter the uranium market, it came to dominate it. Undercutting almost everyone else. But being the low-cost king of a strategic fuel comes with a complicated set of customers. So where does all this uranium actually go? This is where geography turns into geopolitics. Kazakhstan exports essentially all of the uranium it mines. The country has only just begun building its own nuclear power. And look at the map. Kazakhstan is landlocked, sharing its 2 longest borders with Russia and China. That shapes everything. Historically, Russia was the main immediate customer and transit route, a legacy of the Soviet era. When Kazakhstan was the USSR's uranium quarry and, darkly, the site of hundreds of Soviet nuclear weapons tests. But the bigger story today is China. According to the World Nuclear Association, China now receives more than half of Kazakhstan's uranium production. More than half. As Beijing builds nuclear reactors faster than any country in history. It has locked in the world's largest uranium supplier right on its doorstep. Through long-term contracts and joint ventures. Now think about what that means for everyone else. The United States, France, South Korea, Japan, all of them need uranium too. And the West has spent decades letting its own mining and enrichment capacity wither. The US now imports the vast majority of the uranium its reactors burn. The US now imports the vast majority of the uranium its reactors burn. And Washington has grown alarmed enough that it designated uranium as vital to energy security and national defense. And committed billions of dollars to rebuild domestic enrichment. But you can't rebuild a mining industry overnight. It takes a decade or more to permit and open a new mine. So the uncomfortable reality is this. The nuclear renaissance the West is now betting on. To hit climate targets and to power artificial intelligence. Runs straight through a single country wedged between Moscow and Beijing, a country whose biggest customer is China. For a fuel that's literally classified as vital to national defense. That is an extraordinary concentration of risk. And it's one that quietly tilts a little more toward Beijing with every new contract. Now here's where 2025 and 2026 get interesting. After years of low prices, uranium has come roaring back. In January 2026, the spot price punched through $100 a pound for the first time in 2 years before settling back toward the high 80s. And the country with the most power to move that price is, of course, Kazakhstan. In 2025, the state miner Kazatomprom, the world's largest producer and seller of natural uranium, actually grew output by about 13% in the first half of the year. But then, in August 2025, the company announced something that sent a jolt through the market. For 2026, it would cut production. Kazatomprom said it would lower its nominal output target from around 32,700 tons down to roughly 29,700, a reduction of about 3,000 tons. That doesn't sound like much. Until you realize it equals cutting about 5% of the entire world's primary uranium supply. With a single corporate decision, the company was blunt about why. It didn't see market conditions strong enough to justify flooding the world at full capacity. In other words, Kazakhstan is behaving less like a simple miner and more like a swing producer. The uranium equivalent of OPEC adjusting the taps to manage the price. There's a deeper logic here too. Kazatomprom knows the demand wave is coming, and that prices are likely heading higher. Holding uranium in the ground while the world grows desperate for it isn't a loss. It's a bet that every ton will be worth more tomorrow than today. When one country controls 40% of supply and can move global prices by trimming output, it isn't just a participant in the market, it is the market. And the demand side is about to get far more intense. Because of something nobody factored into uranium forecasts 5 years ago, artificial intelligence. Training and running AI models consumes staggering amounts of electricity. And the companies building it, the hyperscalers, have discovered that renewables alone can't give them the steady, round-the-clock power a data center needs. So they've turned to nuclear. Tech giants are signing deals to restart shuttered reactors and to back a new generation of small modular reactors. The scale is hard to overstate. U.S. data center electricity demand alone is projected to climb from roughly 176 terawatt-hours to as much as 580 terawatt-hours by 2028, more than tripling in just a few years. Every one of those nuclear-backed electrons needs uranium. Industry surveys now suggest mined uranium may cover less than 75% of reactor requirements in the years ahead. After a decade of underinvestment in new mines and shrinking stockpiles, that is the textbook setup for a structural supply squeeze. So step back and look at the full picture. Demand is being rewritten by the AI boom. Supply is constrained, slow to build, and concentrated in one place. And that one place, Kazakhstan, is deliberately holding back output to protect its prices, while shipping more than half of what it does produce to China. A quiet country on the steppe, that most people couldn't find on a map, has ended up holding one of the most important levers in the 21st century economy. The fuel for the nuclear age, and now the AI age, flows through Kazakhstan, and that is a kind of power worth understanding. If you learned something new about how the world really works, subscribe. We break down one Asia data story like this every single day.